Hello everybody, I am Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and we like to watercolor. We like to paint with water and color, so we do it all together and it makes watercolor. And we do different projects every single week because we like to mix it up. And this is what we're doing, the sunflower.
Oh my gosh!
Go. It's bright, it's happy, it's beautiful, I love it. And I'm really excited to teach you guys what we're painting today. There's gonna be 5 steps to this sunflower. So even if you're a beginner or coming back to watercolor or just trying something new, you can follow along. We break it down simple for you. You can do this. So, pick up a brush and try it. We have 4 colors that we're using today. So we're using black and iris blue and daffodil yellow and amber yellow. Now, if you've painted our koi fish before, you'll be like, wait, we've used those colors for the koi fish. Yes, we did, my friend. Good job paying attention.
I was gonna say.
I said those colors and I saw Al's face just go, koi fish. You're correct. But guess what? We mix different colors and we get a totally different color palette just by mixing different colors together to get green and a green blue, and it's gorgeous. It's lovely. It's gonna be great. So, should I go over the steps?
I would.
Okay, that's probably a good idea. Let me bring my notes closer to me. Okay, so to start off with our sunflower, first step number 1, the center. The center of the sunflower, we're gonna put down first. Step number 2, the petals, okay? But here's the thing with the petals is there's actually 2 layers of petals, so we're just doing petal layer number 1.
No lies.
Yes, it's true. It's happening. Step number 3 is we are going to do the stem and the leaves. Step number 4 is the second round of petals. And step number 5, of course, as always, I think with every single project, this is the last step. Can you guess what it is, Al?
No, I have no idea.
You really don't?
Details.
Details. I'm really happy you knew that. If you didn't know that, I was going to be like, wait a second, we've done so many of these.
We always do the koi fish.
So details is our last step. That's just when we kind of do these little dot textures and, details. It's going to be great. Okay, so before we get started, I want to tell you guys something.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you notice about this sunflower is that it's slightly tilted, okay? So the center of my sunflower is not perfectly circle, okay? It's kind of like more of an oval. My sunflower itself, the petals are not the same length all the way around. And then even my leaves, we're seeing them from the side. You see what I'm saying now? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So, and that is because we are seeing this sunflower as if we were seeing it in person, so it's a little bit tilted off to the side from us, okay? So, but here's the thing. If you are new to painting or not super familiar with art, you are gonna want to paint your sunflower perfectly with a perfect circle.
Ugh.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what, it's not gross. There's a time and a place for everything. It's just not today.
Boring.
And you do, your things all around it. So you kind of picture in your head that it's totally laying flat on the ground in front of you, right? That's how we kind of picture. And you would probably do your stem like this, and then you'd probably do your leaves like this, right? Okay? You see what I'm saying? My point is when we're painting this, we're gonna have to think of foreshortening because things are turning from us. So don't listen to what your brain says while you're painting this, okay? And I know this sounds so weird, but this is the #1 thing I learned in art school, which is don't paint what your brain tells you,
Focus your eyes.
Paint what you see. No, paint what you see, not what your brain tells you. Because this is what your brain tells you when you see a sunflower in your mind, right? It's totally flat, we're bird's eye view, that kind of thing. But when we actually see a sunflower in person, because it has a form, it's kind of angled and all those things. Okay? I just wanted to make that point because as we go, it'll make sense. So, our very first step here is the center of our flower. And to do that, I just used a brown, but what are we gonna do? Because we don't have brown in one of our colors.
Oh, geez.
What are we gonna do? Well, guess what? If you mix colors, Like I'm gonna grab a little daffodil, I'm gonna grab a little amber, and a tiny bit of black. Okay, so now I have this brown. And if your brown is reading a little bit too green, then you can add a little bit more of the amber, of the orange, and that would kind of give it more of a red tint to it. When I say orange, I mean amber, okay? They're the same thing in my head. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my circle, but when you do your circle, it's not a perfect circle, it's going to be more of an oval. And then I'm not gonna do like a complete solid line and fill it in. I'm gonna kind of like do dashes pretty much. So I'm just gonna kind of like go around. It's okay if it gets a little thick, but I just kind of wanna establish that this is the center of my sunflower. So I have a nice little oval and it's kind of on its side. And then I'm just gonna put in the black center for now. Okay? So this is all I really wanna do. You can actually, I'm gonna take some water and kind of like bleed this out a little bit, but we'll go back in a little bit later when we do our details and really put in different colors and all that texture and stuff like this. But we just wanna kind of establish what that center looks like. That's it, that's step one.
Step one?
Step one complete, you did it.
Jeez.
Okay.
Only 3 more, 4 more?
4 more. Now we're gonna do our petals. And the thing I want you to remember with petals too, is if you look at our reference photo here, these petals are all different shapes, okay? So when you go to paint your petals, don't think that they have to be this like gorgeous, you know, perfectly curved petal right here. Because if you look at an actual sunflower, the petals are sometimes misshapen, or some of them are more curly, some of them are funky shaped, that's fine. That's what we're trying to show. And then the other thing I want you to keep in mind is that the petals are going in different directions. So if you like follow, I'm gonna use this brush since there's not paint on it, but if I'm following the direction of my petals and I'm lining my paintbrush up with them, you see how they kind of change direction? You see what I'm saying, Al?
Yeah. They look like they're all going out.
They're all going out from the center, right? So that's what we're trying to portray, is they're all going out from the center, which means the direction of them is going to change as we go around the center of our flower. Okay? What? Am I doing an okay job so far?
You're doing a great job.
Why are you laughing?
Just that we were explaining that petals go out from the center of the flower.
All right, that's a valid thing to laugh at, but you know what? It's okay. Yeah, and that's all I'm gonna say.
What if people didn't know that the petals went out?
Here's the thing, people know that the petals go out, but when they go to draw them, they don't know that the petals go out, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna grab my daffodil yellow, and what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna start, I'm gonna use my round 6. Here, it's a little bit thicker. And I'm gonna start making my petal shapes. And I kind of just do 2 curved lines, and then they meet up together to make 1 petal. And then as you make your petal shapes, there's not like super rhyme or reason to this. Some of them are gonna have like an extra little curve to them. They're just kind of all different shaped. Okay? And you just kind of make your way around the sunflower. And sometimes what I like to do after I put in the petal is I just drop in a little bit of color. I mix a little brown in there, and it just kind of bleeds out while it's still wet. So I'm just taking my petals, and like that, even though it has a funky top here, I'm leaving that, because sometimes sunflower petals do have a funky top and it doesn't go to a straight point. So really don't be afraid to like just play. You can even play on scratch paper if you want, and just be like, okay, what different shapes can I get with my paintbrush here? What is going on? That kind of thing. Okay? Don't be afraid to do that. This is fun. This is loose.
Have you ever seen a sunflower in real life?
Have I? Yeah.
No, because they're like way not as pretty as you'd think they are.
Yeah, I know. Actually, if you look at sunflowers close, like the petals are really...
It's like a ditch flower.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, there's like, I don't, if you look at like
but in a field, real nice.
In many fields where there's hundreds of sunflowers, just gorgeous, beautiful, so beautiful. Okay, and then I'm just gonna keep going all the way around. Now you see that the direction of my petals is changing, and as I get to the kind of side of my center here, it's gonna kind of flop out, flop. See how it's kind of flopping? You see what I'm saying now?
I see it.
It's like,
so are you doing them longer on that side because it's closer to you?
so they're gonna be around all the thing you have to remember is this is our first layer of petals. So we're gonna do another layer that's gonna kind of go behind theirs that are gonna be taller. But the side ones are gonna stay the same. Does that make sense? Sure. So when we add the second layer of petals, we're gonna go a little bit taller back here, but the side ones are gonna stay this same length. Yeah. We'll just add another layer behind it, but it's gonna stay around the same height. So just kind of, and some of these petals, that one's a little funky shaped. I'm leaving it, okay? You just leave it, you let it go, you let it do its thing. Because we're gonna do so many layers on top of this that it doesn't really matter if one's a little funky. And then when you get to this side, it's gonna kind of curve around the other way. And now I'm kind of just using like water to kind of go through, because we also want value change, right? We want some petals to be very strong yellow, and some of them we want to be a little bit lighter yellow, so that's why I'm just kind of using the water here to do some of these petals. Now, when you get to the bottom though, this is what I want you to do. You're gonna wanna make a really long petal like our top ones here. But this first layer of petals, they're actually gonna be shorter because they're foreshortened. Do you know what that means, Al?
Sounds made up.
Sounds made up, but it's a real thing. So if I hold my hand up like this, right? This is how tall my hand is.
It's 1 hand tall.
This is 1 hand tall. It's actually 6 inches. I've measured it. It comes in handy way more than you think. Anyways, this is the height of my hand, right? But if I were to put my hand so it's looking at you, the height of my hand goes to like 1/2 inch, right?
Tiny.
Tiny. That's because it's foreshortened. So when things are angled towards you, they're not as tall as your brain is telling you that they're tall. Everybody knows that a hand is tall, but when it's pointing towards you, it's like that long. So you have to keep that in mind. With these petals, they're kind of, they're coming out at us. So we're not seeing the whole height of them. We're just seeing the short side of them because they're coming at us. So these petals are going to be little guys here. So they're a little bit shorter. And you can drop in some color.
I feel like you could use that on the playground.
What?
Hey bro, you just foreshortened over there. Tiny guy.
Like to make fun of somebody?
Oh yeah.
That's
like to
so
cut
mean.
them down and hurt their feelings.
Well, me and you are very different, Al. I would never say that to somebody.
And I'm a giant.
That's true. Everybody is foreshortened on you. Okay, so this is our first layer of petals. This is probably looking a little rough. I know it is. Stick with me. Okay, it's gonna be fine. Now, what I am gonna do before we add our second layer is we just wanna make sure this sunflower looks really full. So we wanna fill up all of these gaps that are kind of in between. Now we're gonna take care of some of that when we do our second round of petals, but something that I found really helpful, especially with watercolor, is just taking a damp brush and kind of just like kind of going through in between these white marks and just like spreading this color out. So it's not like I'm making a totally different shape. I'm kind of just like blending some areas together. That. And that's just gonna make it look a little bit more full. And I'm gonna add some like lines to this if I wanna like change the shape of some of my petals here. And then drop in some colors here at the base where it's kind of coming off. If you drop in some color and you don't like I put in a little bit of brown here where it met the center, and you don't like how far it spread, I'm just gonna take my damp brush and lift that color up. You can use your brush to kind of move colors around. So don't be afraid to do that. And then the second time around, when we do our second layer of petals, you see how these orange ones here? That's because they're like shadowed because they're underneath that first layer of petals. So we're gonna put some of that into our painting when we get to that step. But we want it to dry first a little bit, because if we try to do the second layer of petals right now and put in some shadow, it's so wet that it will just kind of bleed everywhere. And so we don't want that. So we're just gonna kind of let things be. Oh, I got some yellow there. That's okay. Okay, so we put in our first layer of petals. That's step 2. Step 2 is done.
I feel like we're sprinting.
We're doing great.
I'm out of breath.
Okay, now we're gonna put in our stem, but we don't have green. Al, what do we do?
No. Let's go back to Let's Make Art and order some green.
Well, you can order a bottle of green, or you can mix green together. And sometimes...
But you only have blue and yellow, Sarah. How will you do it?
Oh my goodness, those are the exact colors you need to mix green, blue and yellow. Taking some iris.
Like we're turning into the worst duo that could ever host.
You know what? I think people like it.
But wait, what could you do?
But wait, Al, what do we do? I think people appreciate cheesiness. I do.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so to do my stem here, I'm gonna mix a little bit of my iris with my daffodil yellow, and I make a green. Now, if you want your green to read more of a yellow green or a light green, you have more yellow. If you want it to read a darker green or a more blue green, you add more.
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Blue. Fine, that's fine. I can answer all the questions. So I have a light green here, and I'm gonna make my stem. Now I'm gonna start off going a little bit to the side is where my stem is gonna kind of come in underneath my sunflower here. So first of all, I'm not gonna do a completely straight line, and I'm not gonna go straight for the middle of my sunflower, okay? So I'm kind of coming in here off the side. It's kind of curved, and then it goes back in like that, okay? And I just usually do one line so I know kind of where things are going, and then I go back and I thicken it up. So I'm gonna take my brush, go in, and just go with a little bit of a thicker line. And you can make your line as thick, or your stem as thick or as thin as you would like. I like to stay more on the thinner side of things, so I'm not gonna go too crazy. And then what I wanna do is I wanna add in some like really bright colors to this thing, because that green is looking a little anemic. Is that the right word? Anemic?
Anemic.
Right? Where it kind of looks like discolored and weak.
My sister is anemic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe that's not the right word. You all know what I mean. So I'm gonna put in, I'm gonna mix a little bit more blue into my green so I get this really rich, dark green right here. That's really just lovely. And I'm gonna put it in on the left side of my stem. Now I waited a little bit too long, so it's not spreading out. Like if you do it while the stem is still wet, it will just bleed out and be really like blend out on its own. So I'm gonna re-wet my stem and then go along the edge and put in that color. And even if you want to do little sections that are, you know, almost just straight blue, you can. And then I'm going to go in and put in some yellow, like just some strong yellow here. So on this side, I'm going to have some touches of this yellow going down. And make sure that your stem is shadowed right underneath where it's meeting the flower, because the petals itself are going to be casting a shadow onto your stem. So it's going to be a little bit darker up there. And remember, if you want to lighten up an area, you can just use your brush and lift some color out. I just think it's fun to drop in some color. Okay, so I have my stem, and now I'm going to do my leaves. And so I'm going to do one leaf up here, and I'm still going to use my 6, and I'm just going to kind of pull here off to the side. It's kind of coming curved off. Light pressure to get a nice thin line. And I'll do my other one down here. So my stem is a little bit thicker where it meets the main body of the stem on the sunflower. And then as it goes up, it gets thinner. So thick to thin. And then I'm going to put in the dark area of my leaf. So I'm going to mix this blue with my yellow and mix more blue in to get a really dark, deep green. And for this side of the leaf, I kind of just do like, here, I'll just show you, like a kind of a curved line. So I kind of start off thick, and then it just kind of like curves out with a nice little point. If you want to drop a little extra color in there, it's always fun to do so. And then the same thing on this side. Now, because I'm going on the opposite side, I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. But if you just want to flip your painting the other way around and start at the stem, you're welcome to.
Wait, can you show what you're doing right now in the reference photo?
Yeah. So I'm putting this side of my leaf in.
Oh.
And then we're going to add water to get the other side. So we're going to put this side in first, and then fill it in with a warmer, lighter yellow.
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to start at the bottom here. Just going to kind of work my way across. It's kind of just a thin, like a wavy line. It's not exact. And this is as if it's like the side of a leaf, if you're looking at a leaf from the side.
Or a dying flower.
Or a dying flower. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more daffodil on here because that mixed all into green. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit more yellow to get like a nice light green. And then I'm just going to kind of curve out this leaf so it has a body. So I'm going to just use this and curve it out and then fill that in. Just like that. And you can drop in some water here for texture, or if you want like a stronger color. This one's kind of falling a little bit more, but all leaves have different shapes. They're all going to do a little bit different things. I'm going to drop in some yellow. And then the same thing on this side. I'm just going to kind of give my leaf a body. So I'm just going to kind of do a curved line on the other side, like that. So hopefully this kind of gives the illusion that we're looking at the leaf from the side, and this darker part is almost the underside of a leaf, and the more yellow-green part is the top side of a leaf. Because if you look at a leaf from the side and it's kind of big and kind of wavy, then you will see the top and the bottom at the same time. Drop in some yellow. I just want to make the top of this a little bit darker. Just like that. And you can always like go through and check. The thing that you have to remember is like, I'm just doing this in steps and just doing one pass for each step, but you can always like take a second and be like, you know what, I want to add more color to my stem, and you can go back to it. Don't feel like that because that step has like moved on or removed on from that area that you have to leave it alone. You absolutely don't. It's your painting. Make it however you want it to. I'm just adding a little bit of a more blue line here on my stem. Okay, I have my stem on my sunflower. That's step 3. So now we're moving on to step 4, which is we're gonna do the second layer of petals. Now I'm gonna rinse my brush so I don't have any more kind of blue or green on it. Now when I do my second layer of petals, I'm gonna mix a little bit more of the amber in with my yellow. So here's my yellow, and I'm mixing in a little bit of amber so it's a darker color. And then these ones, I want them to be a little bit more, almost like outlines, or I want to give my flower a little bit more shape. So I'm just going to kind of go through and be like, okay, there's a petal that's behind here. And there's, oh, try not to put your hand in your wet leaves. And I have a shapely petal going on over here. When you get around here, and then like...
Are you still on your 6?
Yes, I'm still on my 6. Good question. We'll move to the 2 when we do the center of our flower and the dots and stuff. So I'm still using my 6. And you can kind of use this orange as like a shadow color. So if you kind of want to define the space between 2 petals like I did here, I'm almost putting in like a shadow in between the 2. So people are like, oh, there's like a separation or a gap there. We kind of just go through and start putting in some darks. And then when I get to the bottom, I'm going to add a little bit more orange to get a stronger color. And I'm going to do some petals underneath there. Now these ones aren't facing us, they're not as upturned as the first layer, so they're going to be a little bit longer. And remember to rinse your brush and use that water for these petals as well. They don't have to be that strong orange the whole time. We're going to kind of mix it up in terms of value. And when you get to the stem, it might bleed a little bit with the green. I always embrace those changes because I think that's the gorgeous thing with watercolor, is you just kind of get these colors that kind of bleed together a little bit. So I'm just kind of going around and putting in some orange petals all around my flower. Wherever it looks like there's a chunk or a space that's like missing some, that's where we can kind of go in and fill in that area. And you can also get kind of sketchy with it. Like you can do, you know, little drawing lines and be like, oh, okay, this shape here. It can get messy. That's the point I'm trying to make here, is like, it's okay if it gets a little chaotic.
A little sketchy.
A little sketchy.
Like you might be afraid to walk by this flower.
And you can even do another, like I'm just adding some water and doing almost like another petal in between these areas. Because I just want to communicate that there's so many petals and it's so layered and there's so much going on. The other thing that I also like to do is I want there to be a stronger concentrated color where these petals are meeting the center of my flower. So I'm going to mix a little bit more orange into this yellow and kind of just go through and bring some orange into some of these petals here.
I feel like the same technique would also paint a lion.
Yes, it would. We should do a lion one day. Tell us if you want a lion. I'll do it.
Smash that like button. Comment for a lion.
Comment for a lion. And then I'm just kind of using my water and blending some of these areas out. And that's just because I like to have it seem a little bit more messy, essentially, is what I'm doing. Okay. So we finished our second layer of petals. I think it looks good. I think the only thing that's throwing me off, and I don't know if you guys noticed, is the orange on that I was trying to get right at the top of my petals connected with the shadow that I was trying to do. So it kind of looks like a chunk is right here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna try and get rid of that line that's connecting them. So I'm just taking my damp brush and smushing it and lifting this color up. There. So now it doesn't look like this chunk is in the middle, like kind of separating everything. This yellow is reading more regular petal. Layer 1, layer 2. Okay. That's it for step, what are we on?
3.
4.
4.
That's it for step 4.
Detail.
So now we're moving on to the last step, which is the center of my flower. Now, if you look at the center of my flower, I have lots of colors going on. I have greens, I have blues, I have oranges, I have yellows. I have like all of the colors. So I'm gonna start putting those colors in now, but you do wanna like check to make sure that the petals surrounding the center of your flowers are dry. If the yellow part is still wet and you try and put color in that center, all of that color is gonna bleed out across those petals. And for the most part, we wanna keep the petals within the yellow and orange range. So I'm just gonna kind of go through and start putting in some colors. Now there's no, for me when I was painting this, there wasn't like a rhyme or reason. I just kind of got the area wet and then just kind of started placing color. But try not to make it look like it's polka dots. So don't be like here, 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 right? Because that might look funny. So just kind of like, instead try and just do more sections and then kind of like spread it out. So it's not like circles of polka dots. You can drop in some yellow and some orange and more brown because the center of sunflowers are brown. I was gonna make Al answer that, but I had a feeling he wouldn't, so.
It's like the worst tour guide would be like, and this one is anybody? That's right.
So I'm just adding more brown to my center. And then I like how I had these kind of sections of blue in there. So I'm gonna kind of drop in some blue. Now remember that the very center of your sunflower is going to be the darkest part. So right now, because I added such strong colors, this brown in the middle is kind of fighting for that darkest part. So we can go in with a little bit of black and darken that up. Because if you look at a sunflower, there's actually like two parts to this section. There's like the very middle, which is the darkest, and then it's like a lighter kind of brown around it. Okay. And then I'm gonna take my two and I'm gonna grab some black. I'm gonna mix it a little bit with the brown so there's a little bit of color. Now the thing you have to be careful with black when you're using black to paint is if you're using pure black in non-detail cases, like how do I say this? Let me think. Black can quickly flatten an image because it has a lot of gray in it. And I know that sounds silly. It's like black, of course, has gray. it's a desaturated color. So sometimes you can like mix black using different colors, which a lot of artists do, is they don't even use black. They mix their own black because there's a richness to it and there's a fullness to it. And so if I'm adding black in my painting and I don't want it to seem really gray in that area, then I add a little bit of another color to it so it's still dark. It's still acting as a black, but it's not like a flat, like black gray color. I'm not gonna ask Al if that makes sense because I feel like it does. So we're gonna move on.
I feel like we're part philosophy, part
because sometimes I'm like, does that make sense? And you just go, no. But anyways, so I'm adding black to my brown to give it a little bit more of a fullness of color. And then I'm gonna go around the edge here and just start doing like kind of dashes. Now where all this color is in the middle, it's still pretty wet. So I'm gonna kind of go a little bit outside of it so it doesn't bleed. And then as it dries, you can go back and put some of these little stem things a little bit more in the middle. Now remember to keep these stems, not stems, what would these be? I feel like they're little seeds. Remember to keep these seeds, play with different thicknesses. We don't want them perfectly aligned all the way around. We want them to read a little bit more random. We want them to read a little bit like you're seeing them at different like sides almost. So there's gonna be different lengths, there's gonna be different thicknesses, there's gonna be different things going on. If it looks too uniform, it's gonna kind of kill the illusion of a real sunflower and it's gonna flatten that center. So after I put my centers in, I kind of just like blend them out just a little bit so it's not so like even. I want it to blend in with my center a little bit, so I'm blending it out. I'm gonna lift up a little bit of color around here. Okay, and now, so I finished my center. When it dries, I might add a little bit of color, but I mean a little bit more seeds here. I'm not gonna put those in because they would just blend out. But another thing that you can do, and please feel free to do this on your own time, is I'm gonna kind of just look and see if there's any adjustments I need to make anywhere else on my leaves or my petals or kind of any other finishing details. I think I'm gonna take just a strong yellow across my leaf on this side. It's never too late to add another little touch of bright color here. And then I'm gonna do that the same on my other side. Just gonna put in some yellow and on my stem. And this is why watercolor is fabulous, because it's transparent, so we can layer these colors on and you can see them. You can still see them. And then on my petals, I feel like this area I lost a little bit in terms of the shape of my petals. So I'm just gonna take some orange and kind of like define my petals a little bit more, the shape of them. So that means I'm just gonna outline a couple of them. So you want to give the viewer enough information so that they can tell, oh, that's a petal, or oh, that's what that is, but we don't want to get too crazy in terms of like outlining every single one, because usually when we outline things, it flattens them. So we're just kind of just giving more of a general shape. I'm going to take a light yellow wash and kind of just do some really light petals back here, kind of far away. That's it. What do you think? What do you think, Al?
I love it.
Good, I'm so glad. Okay, maybe I'll put in a little bit more dashes. Seeds. Let's wait for it to dry. Okay, I'm gonna put some, see if it's dry enough. Oh, yeah, it's getting there. Put some seeds back in here. Okay, so we put in our seeds. Let me see. Sometimes you might, it looks like I got my wrist in here and dragged it a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can lift that off. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. So
Everyone can see that.
using just clean water and a clean brush. You wanna make sure you're not using your paint water because your paint water is dirty. And I'm just gonna get it wet. And then use my paper towel. So there's still a little bit of it there, but it's not as bad as it was. Let me do that down here too. So you can lighten it.
Is all the cleanup?
Yeah, clean up part. I'm not gonna touch the top
Step
because
six.
Clean up, clean that up.
Wrist.
So if you're looking at these two things, there is a difference, which is this one is a little bit stronger in color. So these petals here, they're a little bit more shapely, and that is because I used more water when I was painting this, and I did the petals in a lighter wash. So they're kind of a light yellow, and then the light yellows kind of layer on top of each other so they keep that shape. This one I used mainly paint when I painted this, and so the color is stronger and thicker, and so the petals lost their shape just a little bit, but I feel like it's still giving me a good idea of the shape of the sunflower and the feeling of the sunflower. So I'm still happy with it.
Did you do it wrong, Sarah?
I wouldn't say I did it wrong, Al, because there are many ways to paint, and it's gonna look different every single time. Every single time I paint something, it looks different from the first time I painted it, and that's because we mix our colors, and so sometimes your colors turn out slightly different, and sometimes you have a little bit more water on your brush. But I think that's actually the really fun thing about watercolor, is it kind of turns out different every time, and then as you go, you'll learn that there's different ways where you can manipulate those things.
You want to see it a third way? Grab the paint line.
Yeah,
do it again.
We're gonna do it again when I do this live. Is that sunflower gonna look different from these two? Probably. And that's okay. So there are kind of tricks you can do if you want to lighten this up. You can always kind of go in with some water. I'm going to do this in the center here. Put some water down, grab your paper towel, and pick up some color. There's different things that you can play with to adjust it as you go. But that's it for our sunflower. We're done. We did it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see yours. So post it, share it, let me see it, tag us in it, right? Yeah.
Don't we want to see it? Maybe.
I want to see it.
I'll look at them.
I'll look at all of them. Share us in it. And then we have these in kits. So if you want to paint using these paints, we have kits with step-by-steps and a reference photo and paper and the paints. You can get that on our website at letsmakeart.com. And we also have a subscription box that will have 4 projects in it, the 4 projects we're doing for the month. All of that's mailed to you. And we are gonna paint this live Tuesday, 7th, August 7th. Tuesday, August 7th, we're painting this live, 7:15 Central Standard Time. So come with us with questions or concerns. Come just to hang out. We love to talk and have fun and paint. So thank you so much.